Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. We're now 2.5 days into the Settlers of Kelgo expansion, and I've got a really simple guide as to how to get your town set up. There are sometimes guides that need to be super in-depth because there's a lot to go through. This one, though, there is one fundamental principle you need to know, and then there's a couple of small nuances on it. That fundamental principle you need to know is that the people that you have access to at the start in King's March are terrible. You need to upgrade them, you need to replace them with decent people. Rolf the Recruiter is key to that. The problem with Rolf the Recruiter, though, is that he starts out very, very limited in what he can recruit for. When you go to the Town Improvements window, you'll see I'm currently rank 9, looking to upgrade to rank 10. Basically, every time that you rank up your town, you'll gain access to people who have higher skill levels. Higher skill levels are a really big deal when it comes to everything King's March related. Going from a 6 to a 7 skill level is basically like being 50% better than just being a level 6 person alone. And there's a whole write-up on Reddit, which I'll put a link to down in the description below, that goes into some of the numbers on that. And that's the same for pretty much every level gap. Every time you go +1 level, you roughly go plus 50% more effective. This is critical because a lot of the other upgrades you need to do in order to get things running here require reasonably large numbers of materials. You'll see here that I am limited on Or Good, and the reason for that is I just don't have enough farmers producing it because I haven't been able to recruit very good farmers just based on RNG from Rolf. So, what you want to do is upgrade your town centre first. You want to ruthlessly prioritize this. All your resources go to upgrading your town centre unless you are blocked by not having access to something. For example, at the moment you can see I am blocked by not having enough gold. What I need to do there is simply go out and map. And I'm also blocked by not having enough Or Good. Now, you're not going to need to remember that Or Good and Blue Xanthium are plants. All you need to remember is a simple rule of thumb. There are 3 categories of resource. Firstly, there's anything that's a bar. Anything that's a bar comes from the smelter, and it requires an ore as an input. So, if you're unable to produce a particular bar that you need, then what you're going to need to do is upgrade your smelter until you're able to do that. That was definitely one limiting factor on an earlier upgrade. I did not have access to Verisium bars for a period. If it's something that is an ore, then it is produced over here at your mining. You're going to need to go and tag mining deposits inside maps, and you can get a meaningful start on this during the campaign. It's been my personal experience that Verisium is extremely rare in white tier maps and uncommon in yellow and red. Other people, however, have reported seeing it in Act 10 as well, and have reported seeing it a little bit more than I did while in white tier maps. Verisium encounters, interestingly, use the mechanics from Path of Exile's Crucible expansion, although you won't need to engage with it quite as often as you needed to in that expansion. Anything you're limited by that's not an ore, not a bar, and that's not thaumaturgic dust comes from the farming area. The farming area is something that you will be limited by a fair bit. Fundamentally, what the farm does is it allows your workers to turn gold into the various farmable resources. That's all the farm is. It's extremely passive, but this is where the biggest delays are. The smelter as well can be a bit of a delay at times too, but this is the main delay. What I would suggest you do in order to optimize this process, if I was starting again now, I would just play through the campaign up to the end of Act 9, and along the way I would try to do at least 3 or 4 of each type of encounter with the new League mechanic. So by that time you'd have a modest number of each of Crimson Iron, Orichalcum, Amber, and also Bismuth marked. You're not going to be able to mine them until you've got mining established, but at least you've got them marked. That means that when you've got the miners can go and find the places even though you've long fled the area. Once you come to the town, the first thing you'll be able to set up is your mining, and you'll then be able to start your miners going and mining those ores. The first one you'll be able to do is Crimson Iron. You'll pick up the rest of them later. And then after that, just follow the upgrades that you need to do in order to get your town upgraded. As long as you do that, that's your path of least resistance to getting everything going. I recommend rock up here in Act 9 or so, get it started, go back to clearing the Atlas, and then once you finish white maps, come back a second time and do everything that you're now able to do that you weren't able to do before, and then go back into your Atlas, keep going until you're mostly through yellow maps, then come back and do another pass. The key thing that's going to limit you is going to be gold. You're going to need a lot of it in order to do this, but you will also get a lot of gold, especially as you keep pushing up the Atlas. To give a bit of a sense as to the level of gold drain you'll face when you're a bit further into the King's March system, you can see here that Sindani is a character who has rank 6 in shipping. It also has rank 2 in mining. Now, The way that it seems that these wages work, it seems to be the sum of all of the different skills they've got. So there's a range for shipping rank 6, and that might be something like 110 to 140. And then there's a range for mining rank 2, which might be something like 10 to 20. And then these two get added together, and in the case of Syndony, it adds up to 139. At least that's the way I believe it works. I'm not 100% certain. Anyways, in the case of Syndony, they're a pretty good crew member because they don't have much waste from their secondary talents. You're paying for the secondary talents whether you're using them or not, and as a result, you don't want to have many of them there. If you've got someone that's shipping rank 6 and has no other abilities, they're going to be better than Syndony because they'll do the same job in practice, but they'll cost less to do it. Ultimately, versatility is not very useful in King's March. You're going to be paying for the versatility, and you're not really going to be using it. You'll see for an example of what versatility looks like here, Martjan Brew is an example of a person that I'm not really that keen on hiring. And that's because they're a mapper rank 6. That's impressive, that's a high stat. My highest is 7 at the moment, and that means that they'll be pretty good at clearing white tier maps in a team of 4, and potentially even yellow tier maps when I unlock the ability to do it in a team of 6. However, they're also a rank 6 smelter. Now, if I was to assign Martjan to be a smelter, I would be paying the entire salary of 782 an hour, when someone else who is just a smelter rank 6 would probably only cost me 100 or 115 or so. So that's a complete waste of gold. But at the same time, even if I send Martjan into mapping, I'm not really getting any return on the fact they're also a smelter, but I am paying for that additional talent. Ultimately, this is the sort of person you want to avoid. The absolute worst is where you've got two abilities on someone that are both roughly equally costly. For example, someone that's shipping rank 6 and someone that is a farmer rank 6. Both of these talents you're probably paying about 110 an hour for, but you're only going to be using one of them at a time. You're going to be paying for both of them all of the time. You don't want this. Two things you need to know about the recruitment board. The first thing is if you've got someone that is no longer useful, like Venot Gilsleth here, you can send them on their way. Venet, sorry, but you're fired. You're of no use to me anymore, and whilst I'm not paying you 17 an hour while you're idling, I'm not really interested in paying you 17 an hour to do anything, and I'd rather have the space left in the town. The nice way is to let them go the way I just did. The cruel way is to send them into a map on their own, and then they'll end up having a little bit of an accident in there. But it's up to you how you want to deal with these people that you don't need anymore. The other thing you can do though, is you can press this button to re-roll recruits. You'll see that it costs an amount of gold, and that amount of gold escalates the further that you upgrade your town. Don't worry about that, it is still worth doing, because these people are your biggest resource. I know there's a line that people say everywhere, no matter what line of work they're in, if you're working for someone, human resources is not your friend, they're there to protect your company. Well, in this situation, you are human resources and the company. You are not the friend of the people that are applying to your jobs or the people who are on your existing board of workers. So you can just get rid of them, treat them like garbage, because ultimately there's no real person there. These are just imaginary people in an online game. No real world ethical considerations need to be considered here. Remember, they might be human, but they're still resources. You'll find that in the campaign, gold will really dribble in. It'll turn a corner at the start of Act 9, you'll start getting meaningfully more, but it'll still be slow. It'll turn another real corner when you get into Tier 1 maps, and then it'll just keep getting better from there. It doesn't increase as explosively as Delve Sulfite, but it does definitely go up a lot. Really, that's all you need to do. Upgrade the town whenever you're able to, and whenever there's a resource that you don't have access to yet, go and build the building or upgrade the building that produces that resource. The other thing that you will come up against though is you're going to need to get your thaumaturgic dust production started, and that's going to require setting up the disenchanter. Don't worry about this until you're solidly into maps, but definitely do it. And the other thing that you're going to want to do at some point, although this can definitely be put off much later than I did, you're going to want to start your harbour, and you're also going to want to start your runesmith over here. These things need to be built at some point, but these fundamentally are rewards that don't punish you for not engaging with them earlier on. There's no time gating to them, so you can just wait until you're ready to use them in order to get going with them. As for the ships themselves, there's a bunch of information that's circulating around about the rewards. This isn't quite finalized yet, bunch of people are working on it. I've been trying to figure out a few things, do a few tests myself. For instance, I'm running a bit of an isolation test at the moment. I'm taking one variable difference. One of these boats is sending 1,000 bismuth bars with nothing else. The other one is sending the same 1,000 bismuth, but is also throwing in 50,000 thaumaturgic dust. I have my speculation. I believe both of these are going to bring back gems, but there'll be higher gem levels, higher quality, and also other esoteric states that might exist with the one that's got lots of thaumaturgic dust with it. But I'm not sure I'm right on that. That's the sort of thing that's still being worked out in the background. As well as that, there's a whole bunch of information still to be discovered about the Atlas runners and the rewards that they can get. So far, they've provided me one raw Divine Orb, one raw Exalted Orb, and just a bunch of other middling tier stuff. Things like reasonable cluster jewel bases, including one that sold for 66 Chaos, and a whole bunch of other miscellaneous stuff, most of which is rubbish, but some of which contains a few little gems. Ultimately, it's mostly a big source of gumball currency, as can be the boats a lot of the time, although it is worth noting the boats have given me a number of fairly good rewards as well. Anyways, that's all you need in order to get your town set up. There'll be a lot more information coming over the next few days as people start to work out more of the reward system in this league. I'm going to leave it there. May your boats carry interesting loot.